Welcome to the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for joining me. The Texans put out new uniforms. They finally released these new uniforms. Thank God that these uniforms finally got released on Tuesday morning. Of course, if you've been following, you realize that these uniforms have been out there for a while. It's been leak after leak after leak until finally the Texans released these uniforms themselves. And I got to admit, man, I got to admit this off top that I was wrong about this. All the way up till, I would say, leading all the way up until the actual release themselves, the photos and the videos and the hype around it, listening to the McNairs talk to my guys on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610 about an hour after they released these things. I wasn't really feeling it. Like, I wasn't feeling the uniforms. I wasn't feeling the rollout. I just felt like there was a lot of energy behind this in the very beginning when they first let people know about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, it feels like, when they first let people know that this was coming, as opposed to or compared to, as recently as about a week ago when those uniforms started to get released. Now, really about a month ago when the first uniforms got released or got leaked, and then Cal McNair had to go on Reddit and basically confirm, but also sort of take control of the narrative. And then last week we saw what looked like some delivery service factory type worker who had opened up a package that had the alternate helmet, the blue alternate helmet with the H on it. That was released or leaked. And then the next day you see all of these different photos with the full set out there, with the full 4 uniform set out there. So I felt like the energy behind it really just kind of died down, and I just wasn't feeling it. And it's not that I blame the Texans for the leaks as much as I blame them for the environment that created the leaks. I felt like if they had played this thing a lot less public, or if they were a little bit more discreet about the whole thing, then maybe there wouldn't be as much energy behind the leaks. And it could be just because I'm following the Texans, I'm covering the Texans, I'm here in Houston, and this is the uniform change that I'm paying the most attention to. But when the New York Jets released their new uniforms, when the Denver Broncos released their uniforms, any other set of new uniforms that I've seen, I don't recall having this type of energy around it. Now, the Texans are very specific. They've never undergone a uniform change, and they are still the newest franchise in the NFL. So they don't have the same history and the same culture and the same legacy, and even just the haven't done this before, haven't changed a uniform before. Pretty much every other fan base has done this. And so the Texans are unique in that way. But I felt like the energy would be died down a little bit. I also, when I saw the leaks, and this is full disclosure, I was authorized to view the uniforms before they came out, but I wasn't available to go that day when they presented them to everybody. I had to be on air, I had to prepare to be on air, and had things to do in between work. I just wasn't able to go. So I actually wasn't privy to the final drafts the way a lot of media was, the way a lot of fans that were part of the fan council were. I didn't know what from what until I actually saw the leaks. I was kind of following along with everybody else. Now, I was able to kind of get some authoritative confirmation whenever I would see something, right? Like there was never a time when I saw something and didn't know if it was real. When I saw something and wasn't sure if it was real or not, so that was never really an issue. But I'm basically flying blind. I'm going at it from a fan perspective, from a new perspective, from hey, I'm just now seeing this. And when I saw them, I was not impressed. I was not impressed. And to this moment, I would say it is only really the alternate uniforms that have grown on me. I am a fan and have become a fast fan of the Texans' new alternate uniforms. I think the red joints are really nice with the horn on the side. I just, the only issue that I have with the red unis is that I would have kept the old red helmet. Here's what I would have done with the uniforms. I would have kept the red helmet as the primary helmet. And I know some of you may have heard Landry Locker mention this on In the Loop, may have heard us talk about it on In the Loop last week when I was filling in for John Lopez. I'm sure it's something that he's mentioned on the Locker Room on his own YouTube page. But to me, the red helmet was the best thing that the Texans had going for them in their previous getup. And so I would have wanted to find a way to keep that. Now, I don't think that that red helmet was as universally loved as maybe I would like to think it was, but I would have liked to have seen that be the primary helmet. If not, then I would have liked to have seen that one stay on the red outfit, the all red alternate outfit, alternate uniform. I would have liked to have seen that helmet. Absent of it, I'm cool with the horn. Like I can live with it. I dig the red unit a lot. The alternate blue uni, the H-Town blue themed uni, which to me seems to be, from what I can tell, to be the most polarizing. I'll say that when I saw the helmet released or leaked last week from the factory worker in the warehouse or wherever it was, I didn't love it in the moment, but it comes together for me with the entire uniform. It actually has an interesting. I wonder if I hadn't gotten used to the Space City unit that the Astros have been wearing the last couple of years, if I would still feel the same way about this one. And it's not exactly the same, but it does kind of remind me of that. And I can remember not necessarily liking the Space City unis when they first came out, the City Connect Astros unis, but then those growing on me as well. So I like the alternates. I actually like the alternates. I like the helmet with the uni. I know the H is controversial. The old English H for some seems to be a hit, and then for others seems to be a miss. But the one thing that stands out about everything that they were trying to do here, and what I appreciate most about it, look, I'll be honest. I do not like the rollout. I do not like how public the rollout was, because I did feel like it took a little bit away from the moment. Here, recording this podcast, I question if I'm wrong about that, because there certainly seemed to be a whole lot of energy surrounding this at 10 o'clock a.m. on Tuesday Central Time, despite my feeling that it would take away from the moment. So, I mean, who's to say that it did? It doesn't feel like it did, even though I felt like it would. So I could just be wrong about that. But the thing that I like the most about all of it is that it does feel like it's representative of a mix of what they believe in as an institution, which I think matters. I mean, it's your brand. You should be consistent with what you believe in. There's a mix of that and real public input. Real public input. And what do I mean by that? The Texans have made a real conscious effort to be more of a franchise that reflects and connects with the community that it represents. And for so long, and I wrote this in Cron.com, where I was actually critical of this rollout, a lot more critical in that article than I am right now in this podcast, if I'm being honest about it. But I I thought that this was an effort by the Texans to be inclusive, and that's something that they've talked about internally and externally for the last couple of years. For a long time, it's felt like the Texans were the NFL team that was in the city of Houston, as opposed to being Houston's NFL team. And it's hard to really nail down that point. That's not exactly scientific on what I mean by that, but there was just I can remember when they came out in 2002 and being happy for the city that it had an NFL team because we had gone through those dark days without one, but not really feeling a connection to the franchise, both because of its for a few reasons, because of its newness. There was like this feeling that it needed to prove something to me, but also like just culturally, there was like a bull on the helmet, and I understood that, but there was just not a lot about the team that really connected or landed or resonated. And for lack of a better term, or to kind of oversimplify it, honestly, and I think that the Texans themselves would acknowledge this, so I don't feel too uncomfortable saying this. I think that I think for a while, the Texans image and brand and pretty much everything about them was too white. And it's not to say that only white people like the Texans or that they were not welcoming to other folks. It just had a very it had a feel of a very heavily influenced, very heavy white influence. Like if you were to go to Houston, and if you were to base Houston off of the football team or the image of the football team, you wouldn't have as great of a grasp for how culturally diverse Houston is. And look, if you want a better explanation for that, I implore you to talk to some of the folks within the Houston Texans organization, and they can hammer that point home. But I'm bringing it up because I think it's reflected here in the uniforms, where they wanted to get input from their Latin fan base, their Latino fan base, their African American fan base, their white fan base, their older fan base, their younger fan base, and they wanted it to be all inclusive. And a lot of people will wonder, okay, so why do you even feel like that's worth pointing out? Why do you even feel like that's significant? Because style varies upon background and worldview. It does. Style varies upon background and worldview. And what you have with the classic uniforms, or I should say, put it to you this way, what you have with the standard uniforms, their home blues and their away whites, are an updated variation of what they already had, which is a disappointment to me because I wasn't a big fan of what they already had. But you know who was? Bob McNair, the McNair family. Big fan of the deep steel blue, the original colors, and the original scheme. Very much proud of the original Texans branding. Okay. And I can respect that. Even if it's not my style, I can absolutely respect that. And I think that the Texans here made an effort to stay true to that by updating, but for the most part, keeping it the same. That's how it feels to me. It feels very similar to what they already had, with just a slight tweak and an update. And I think that was important to them, that even though they were going through these uniform changes, that was important to them and absolutely something that they wanted to do. Also, the darker shaded blue is something that they wanted to go back to, because at some point when they changed apparel companies, they didn't have the same color blue. And if you'll notice over the years, the deep steel blue became lighter and lighter, or eventually became lighter. They wanted to go back to a darker blue. I am now confused on what deep steel blue is, because I thought it was a little bit lighter than what it is, than what this is presenting. This is like borderline gray or black. Like it's a very, very, very dark blue that I would, to me, feels like a shade darker than deep steel blue, but I also admittedly am not like an expert on colors and shades and those sort of things. So maybe it is. I liked the lighter, the more navy blue than what this blue is, but it doesn't bother me. The color doesn't bother me as much as it just it's just kind of bland. It just doesn't really do a whole lot for me. And maybe it should, maybe it doesn't need to. Maybe that's absolutely fine. But it's also why I would have much more preferred to have kept those red helmets because I feel like it would have made those uniforms pop. Now maybe the red helmets don't look as good with that darker blue, or with the blue being as dark as it is. Maybe it does, but to me, the red helmets would have at least made the standard sort of every week uniforms pop a little bit more. So, or a white one. And I know the white helmets are not necessarily super popular, but I would have been down with a white helmet as well. That's what they presented when they first revealed the team back in '02 or '01, whenever they actually revealed the team. And they had that white helmet out there, and that was I like that the most. I was disappointed to see that never show up. Now, apparently, some people think that that looks kind of bush league, that the white helmets look a little bush league. I disagree. I'd love to see them out there with white helmets. I think that the home and away jerseys, I would like a lot more if they didn't keep the same helmet. That's where I am with it. I would like the home and away jerseys a lot more if they either brought in a white, adopted the red helmet, or brought in the white helmet. I think they'd look a lot better. They look a lot better than me. Now the alternates are fire, and I don't know if they're fire to me just because they're brand new, or if they're fire to me because I was actually able to see them in HD or in better quality images because they didn't look good in the leaks or as good in the leaks, but they grew on me quickly. I think the red is slick. The best part of the red is, of course, the helmet, the candy paint helmet, which is another nod, of course, to Houston pop culture. I think the red is a slick look. I'm looking forward to Battle Red Day, whenever that may be. The blue, the H Town blue, was clearly a compromise. It was clearly a compromise between what the Texans wanted to do, which was accentuate this powder blue, this lighter colored blue that is consistent with the Houston Oilers, which is consistent with a lot of Houston's culture aside from that, including the Houston Police Department, squad vehicles, and other things like that. Like there's a lot of history in the city that's tied to that shade of blue. I think that the Texans wanted to honor that, but were met with some resistance, if you will, from the Titans ownership, Amy Adams Strunk, namely the daughter of Bud Adams. And there's some tension there. Like there's no way around it. There's some tension. There's some real life animosity that exists between the two organizations, both the fan bases and the leadership, the ownership. And it does seem like the Titans made it difficult for the Texans to get a jersey or a uniform that was that color. Now, what's kind of cool is to learn that even amongst our own fan base, even amongst Houstonians, we don't necessarily agree on that color. Some people have no emotional connection to it. Others do have an emotional connection to it, but want to move on from it, want to put it behind them, don't want any further association with it because of the way things ended, because of what happened, and of course the fact that that franchise is now in the division and is a rival within the division. And then others hold it really, really near and dear to their heart. Like there's not a consensus feeling about that color, the Oilers' history, its ties, and how connected we should all still be to it. So that part of it is fascinating, but I think that the wanting to use that color went beyond just wanting to tap into Oilers nostalgia, but more so Houston nostalgia, because again, there's more to it than just the Oilers. But then also, and this is what I learned from talking with the Texans throughout the market research and all of this, they learned that that's just an overwhelmingly popular color. regardless of age, gender, race, connection to the city's history, people just overwhelmingly like that color. Just sort of in a vacuum, like the color. And so that was another reason why they wanted to. They're like, hey man, this color's popular. People like it. So it has less of it in it than I think that the Texans wanted, but I still think that it's a decent touch. The only issue that I have with the helmet is that it almost has the alternates have, while I like them, they have kind of an XFL feel to them. So I'm gonna have to get used to watching them play in those things in NFL games. But I think that's the only reason why is because I just haven't seen them play in them. Once CJ Stroud is out there throwing touchdown passes to Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs, and Joe Mixon is running in them, and Derek Stingley's getting picks in them, and Will Anderson is getting sacks in them, they'll look more like NFL jerseys to me at that point. Right now, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the old English font or just being the color scheme being new to me and attaching it to this brand. For some reason it's giving XFL, but I like it. I like those better than I like the more traditional unis, which is not really saying much because I didn't love them to begin with. So I think overall what I would say is I'm not as thrilled about the new gear itself as much as I am thrilled about the fact that we've got new gear. I thought that the Texans needed to make over a long time ago. Who doesn't like new gear? And it's just a fun and exciting time with the team. I think it fits perfectly with the actual timeline of them being competitive, right? Like they're gonna go into this season with these new jerseys with the first year of having like real expectations, and not being a laughing stock in the league. Like they're going to go into this season where the biggest thing that you can criticize might be the uniforms. That might be the only damn thing that you can talk noise about is that you don't like the jerseys, which is progress. So I'm happy about that. I am going to rock the new gear. I don't have any on right now, but I'm certain that I'll have some in my possession. Matter of fact, I think yeah, I bought a T-shirt. I bought a T-shirt when I realized I wasn't at the station earlier today. When I realized that all they brought us was hats, and I am grateful for the hats. When I realized there weren't no shirts, I went on and bought me a T-shirt. I've actually, I'm telling y'all too much, but I got a gift card from the team shop that I hadn't spent from like a year ago. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm glad I saved this bad boy. I'm gonna go ahead and buy me a T-shirt. So I did that earlier. I got a T-shirt that's gonna probably be in the mail pretty soon, and I'm gonna go check out this hat as well. I ain't got to really love the new gear. I'm gonna still rock the new gear. I said this on the radio, and I'm gonna say it right here on the B Block podcast. If it's representing Houston, if it's a Houston outfit, I am gonna rock it. If that old English H is us now, it's us now. Like I am all about this city. I am all about being a united front with this city, whether we agree stylistically or not, whether we all like these uniforms or not. I feel like we can get corny at times with our Houston versus the world, H Town versus all y'all kind of mentality. Sometimes it does get a little corny and a little bit worn out, but I'm still here for it. I'm still gonna rock these H's. I'm still gonna rock these horns. I'm still gonna rock this bull. That was the other thing. You know what I really like? I like the bull. Okay, the Texans bull with the H Town blue colors on the Texans bull, right? The H Town blue alternate colors taking the place of the traditional deep steel blue, Liberty white, and battle red colors of the Texans bull. If they could have figured out a way to make that helmet look like that, or make the new logo be that, make the new color scheme be that. And again, I don't know if they could have, because it seems like there may have been some limitations and some pushback from another owner in the league. But I would say maybe my favorite thing, and I'm rocking this H too. I'm going with this old English H. I think it is culturally appropriate, if you will. I do. I do think it is. But if I had to say anything that I like the most and wish there was more of, it would be the bull with the H Town blue colors in it. I really wish there was more of that. That was a more prominent feature in the entire color scheme and in what they got going on. But to my earlier point, I think that they did an outstanding job with their outreach. And I can speak to that personally as someone who was reached out to. Like, I feel like I'm able to kind of just speak on that and feel pretty good about that. They were genuinely curious about what other people thought, what Houstonians thought. They went to all of the media, but they were very particular with some of us who had a deeper connection, whether it being working in the market for a really long time or being born and raised in the market, which I am, I guess, both at this point, right? So they really wanted our input, and I appreciated that, right? I appreciated that they wanted that from the media members, and that was the same sort of energy that they had with the fan council. So I think that the uniforms across the board reflect everybody's voice, but somehow, ironically, could never please everybody. That's the conflict that you find in collaboration, is that it's very difficult to reach consensus when you try to satisfy everybody, to where you might reach a point to where nobody gets satisfied. But in this case, you do have four uniforms. Three, really. I mean, the home and the away are the same to me. They're just, one's blue and one's white. But you got three different styles here. And I think that for the most part, all of your fan demographic is somehow represented in these three styles. The thing about it for me is that, and this is this is kind of, I guess, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but the thing that I liked most about what they did with these uniforms ended up being the thing that annoyed me the most, or ended up being the thing that I felt like that did them in, if you will. And that was the inclusivity, or the inclusiveness, the fan inclusiveness. I appreciated that they did this much outreach. I appreciated that this many folks felt included in the process. I appreciate that it had this much thought put into it. But it also feels like all of that watered it down a little bit toward the end, to where I do wonder what would have been the reaction if, say, I don't know, has it been 2 years yet? Gosh, I'm trying to remember when was the first time they pulled us aside and told us about what they were working on. I don't think it's been 2 years. I don't think, but maybe it has. Time flies, man. Time flies. It's been definitely over 1 year. And yeah, man, maybe it's been 2 years. This may have been 2 years in the making. I'm thinking about that on the fly. But I do wonder if, from that initial point when they first pulled us aside and said that they were working on this, to like now, if they had just dropped a couple of breadcrumbs instead of, you know, I mean, there was a lot of press on this, way more press than I feel like there needed to be. And maybe that's just because they wanted as much input as they wanted. But I do wonder if they had kind of done their market research more so behind the scenes and between initially revealing that they were going to do this up until now, would there have been any leaks? Would there have been any weird energy leading up to it? And would I have felt differently about the uniforms? And I don't know the answer to that. Maybe not. Maybe not. But I will say it's odd recording this right now, feeling the way I feel, because I did wake up anticipating to be let down by these uniforms and by this announcement, and I was pleasantly surprised with how swept away by it I was. Pleasantly surprised. They look a lot better in 4K, if you will, than they do on those leaked images. They look a lot better on the actual players that are going to wear them than they do either on models or just as standalone jerseys. And I'm gonna go get me some gear. I said this on the radio too, man. I could have hated the uniforms and I was gonna rock the gear. I was gonna always rock the gear because it's H time. H time, baby. That's what we about. Anyway, we got the draft coming up in a few days. We will cover that in due time. In the meantime, make sure you are subscribed to the B Block Podcast, rating, leaving a review, telling your friends about it. Make sure you are also subscribed to the B Block Podcast on YouTube as well. And until next time, y'all be good.